All right, it is 6 p.m. Tuesday, January 10th. I'd like to call the regular school board meeting to order. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Lori, sign into everybody sign into board and roll by secretary.
Colin Burnell.
Here.
Matthew Phipps.
Present.
Stacy Selner. Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Gary Travis.
Here.
Tony Gonzalez.
Here.
And Kathy Lewis. Here. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is public input. The first item first person for public input is Ryan Hansen.
Is this good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm here to address once again what I perceive as the haphazard and hand-fisted process of moving to success for all schools. The process just has not been due diligence, as this board likes to use that phrase, and yet we continue to seemingly already now pour money into the issue by sending staff members to various places. Meanwhile, we have stalled the process on moving into reading, which the group that worked for about a year on this process has recommended we do. Delaying this further hampers our ability to implement this vetted curriculum in an orderly, timely manner. And still too many questions remain about success for all if we're going to go the whole way. What is the total cost of SFA if we do this? Do we know this? What about the writing curriculum, which our staff, which visited the school in Ohio, said was not up to par? What are we going to do about that? Do we know what we're going to do about that yet? And how much will that cost if we have to supplement it? Will we have enough certified English instructors to staff up to, 5 perhaps, reading rooms per grade per school? And if we need to hire more reading staff or certify existing staff to teach reading, how long is that going to take? How much is that going to cost? And are we planning to try to overhaul the entire way we do things across the district at the 11th hour without knowing answers to these and probably many more questions? Meanwhile, I think it's wild that there was even a discussion about delaying moving the referendum forward at a recent meeting. With the referendum, which is so obviously necessary to the functioning of the district. Meanwhile, it seems that the board is full steam ahead on success for all with so many unanswered questions. The board has stated its desire to be a destination district, but I think ramming things through so recklessly without due diligence, without involving all the stakeholders in a careful process, threatens to turn us into a resignation district. I do not want that to happen. So this all started as a pilot program proposal. So here's my suggestion. Run the pilot. That makes a lot of sense. Run the pilot program. See if it's successful. If it's successful, you have a model to move to other schools. And not to mention, you'll have much more buy-in from parents and staff who see it work. That makes sense to me. If it's not successful, if mistakes are made, you have a model to try to fix those mistakes and adjust. And if it's not successful at all, you can scrap it. So this seems to be the responsible decision. Move forward with Into Reading, the vetted program that's been in process for a long time and needs to move forward. If we're going to move forward with that, it needs to move forward soon. And run the pilot program. Thank you.
Okay, the next individual for public input is Chris Greneau.
You said a lot of what I was gonna say, but I'm more concerned with this referendum going forth. I mean, everyone talks about we need more and more money, but I heard the successful all costs millions of dollars. The intro to reading is much cheaper and recommended by the school board or whatever, the one that wants to recommend it. Same with the science, but I see you guys are using your personal political bias to not use it. One of your gentlemen said, it's free, it must be bad. If we're asking for a referendum, we don't have the money to spend on things that cost a lot of money. I mean, I'm more worried that we're gonna pass this referendum. I have to make every dollar stretch further. Inflation is killing me. And I'm probably for a lot of other people too, a lot of other citizens. I mean, we have all these things that you guys want to pass that cost a lot of money. We're asking for a referendum. They shouldn't be on the board. They shouldn't be a choice. Your job is to find the best value for our children, not the most expensive value for our children. Even if it's highly valued, but it costs a lot, we shouldn't do it. We should find something that gets the best bang for our buck. And I don't know how much you're asking for this referendum. I don't. Maybe tonight you'll tell us. I don't know how much this SFA cost as a total. I don't know either. I would hope that you guys would tell us how much this costs to implement, how much everything costs. That's what I'm more worried about, that you'll pass this referendum before we get to hear how much all of this costs. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean or anything or keep saying what everyone else says, but in the end, we have to work with what money we have, the best bang for our buck. And my other concern is we have an assistant to a superintendent that's making, I heard, a lot of money. We're flying her in and out. Do we pay for her hotel room? Do we pay for her food? Who is paying for all this? You can't justify these costs if you ask for a referendum. They should be local. Is anyone qualified in the Manitowoc area for this? Can anyone answer that? Did you guys post it locally? Anyone? I'm not trying to be mean or call it anyone.
Yeah, public input is usually just for
It's
us
just
to hear
one
from
minute.
you. We listen to what you have to
We
say.
can address it.
Yes, I would like that.
We can do it.
Because, I mean, we're paying for all this stuff. I mean, if you're asking for a referendum, you got to justify all of this. Thank you. I'm just hoping you guys notice we have to get the best bang for our buck. And I personally don't feel this SFA is the best bang for our buck on this subject. Thank you.
The next person on for public input is Dana Getz.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dana Getz. I reside at 1346 Westwood Lane. I have a few questions regarding Success for All that have not been previously addressed in meetings and have not been answered in the question and answer section on the district website. Question number one, it was identified by the staff that toured the school in Ohio that new writing curriculum would be needed to round out the gaps of SFA, as writing is not a component of the program. I have heard nothing more about this. Where is the board in this assessment piece? Using a curriculum estimate from the literacy program that was brought forward to the board, that was approximately $600,000. This would be in addition to the $1.5 million estimated for SFA. Is this correct? Question number two, I am concerned about the small school libraries and lack of classroom libraries in the Ohio schools. How can we be assured as parents that our children will still have access to robust literature choices? Or is this a deliberate attempt by the board to restrict a student's access to literature? Question number three, when will the full curriculum for all grades 4K through 8th grade be made available to staff, parents, and community members for review? Thus far, only a small portion has been made available with no hard copies provided in the district office. This would include teachers' guidebooks, recommended reading. Sorry, my computer just did something goofy. Teachers' guidebooks, recommended reading, handout, and posters that FSA provides in the classrooms. In the past, the Board of Education has demanded a full 30-day review of all textbooks. Will the Board of Education be voting to adopt SFA without this review period? And is 30 days even a realistic time frame for such a large scope process that could potentially involve all elementary and middle schools? Question number four, since DeRoot has been going an on-source sense of contention for Tony Ballistica and his constant accusations to the previous board for the misuse of funding, I would like to know exactly how much the trips out of state have cost, including cost of substitute teachers and lost learning to students, and who is being robbed to pay Paul, so to speak. Some have speculated that this cost is close to $100,000. For a Board of Education who has made it very clear that they will not make decisions based on one choice, do you ever plan on appointing a committee to review other school reform programs? Historically, curriculum review committees are a part of adoption for new academic programming in our schools. Why hasn't this occurred? The excuse given of no staff bringing other options forward is not acceptable. A project of this magnitude would not be expected of an educator to do so on their own time. Question number 6. Will the community be provided with, or the board for that matter, be provided a full detailed cost analysis for SFA, including new staff positions, supplies, new textbooks, and training, just to list a few? And question number 7, will the community be provided, or the board for that matter, a detailed model of what a typical school day would look like for students, including how adoption would affect specials, such as art, music, and physical education in the elementary schools, in addition to those subject areas, electives in the middle schools previous to a board vote for adoption? I would be happy to send these questions to Stacy for further investigation. Thank you.
All right. I have no other individuals that have come forward for public input, so we will close public input. Moving on to the consent agenda. Did anybody have any items that they wanted to pull out of the consent agenda for discussion? All right. Everybody has received the minutes for the consent agenda. Just a reminder that the consent agenda is furnished with background material on each item or has been discussed in a previous meeting. These are acted upon with one vote without discussion. Each board member may request that any of the following individuals or any of the items from the consent agenda be removed and considered separately. So, all those in favor of the consent agenda?
We need a motion.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll move that we,
motion?
yeah.
I'll second.
Second. All right. All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed. My apologies. Thank you. All right. Next thing on the agenda is the district activity update.
No.
Did I move down too far?
Yeah.
My apologies.
That's all right.
All right. Bill's list. Thank you.
Yes, attached in board book was the payment of vouchers for the previous month for December 2022. So we're just seeking approval for that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions regarding the payment of vouchers? All right. Then moving on.
No, need a first and a
I need a
second.
second.
First,
Thank you. All right. First and second. Somebody got, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve it.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right. Okay.
Any opposed? Next thing on the is the monthly financial report.
yes, nothing too large or of significance to report, just in general, even the large events this month, our ending fund balance was around $11 million. And so we have a large aid payment from the state. And then in this month, we will be receiving a lot of our property tax payments. So that's one of the things of note. Just in general for the financials, we should be able to pull actuals out of Skyward at the end of the month as we're getting history migrated. So we'll be able to start sharing those reports out of the new system.
The next item on the agenda is going to be the personnel report. Mike, no, do you have anything that you wanted to say to that?
No, not really, Colin. everything is pretty standard. And relative to the resignations, we've been very, very fortunate. And out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, 5 of them were moving forward with hires, and the reading teacher we're still working on. But all in all, we've been very fortunate with replacements. And I don't think we're going to see this sort of resignation going on. I think people left us a little bit at mid-year, and I'm pretty confident now for the next semester, we're going to be pretty stable.
There was a position at the end, the mentor position for the extracurriculars. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about that one.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the mentor positions, yeah, there are 4 of them. They are for new hires at this time of year. When we have a new hire into the district, they're assigned a mentor. And the mentor is typically for a year-long assignment. They would have a $600 stipend, but since they're half years, they're half the stipend. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the personnel, anybody else have anything they wanted to ask for the personnel report? Nope. All right. Personnel report, we would need a first motion.
Yeah, I move we accept the personnel report.
I second it.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the district activity updates, superintendent file.
Just a couple items. One thing I'd like to be able to share. My wife and I attended Lincoln High School's alumni night basketball game against Notre Dame. It was a great game. We won 72-55. But what was really extra special about that was that the honored the head coach and members of the Manitowoc Lincoln 1968 state championship team. And so the coach was there and 3 or 4 players, the assistant coach, and it was just a phenomenal thing. To see that and to think about, recognizing our past in terms of how that remains with us and the pride of this community. So it was really quite the opportunity, to be able to see that and to invite the alumni back like that. So that was quite the recognition. The other thing I would just share with you is we have Records Day coming up January 17th through the 19th, and so there won't be in school on those days, but staff will be there relative to doing records and the like. So that's all I have.
The next item on the agenda is going to be the unfinished business, the SFA update.
Yeah, just to recall that, just because the extensive nature of interest, to expand the potential expanding this, across more districts to all districts of elementary and middle school, we extended the timeline to February. So that's there. This week we have 2 site visits. Another one, because again, we wanted to increase the exposure of our teachers and because we feel that was, as you heard back, how beneficial that was to have people see this firsthand and report back. So we sent additional people to Ohio, both to visit the elementary and the middle school. In Lance, really did a lot to organize this along with Jamie McCall and others who assisted. And so on Thursday is it for the Kansas visit? Wednesday. Yeah, so we have a Thursday visit in Kansas. If you recall, we also had a report from the Kansas School District early on when we did, that on the thing there, and we had that participation. We had, I think, 100 staff members who were tuned into that. So it was, quite. So now we're making a trip there, and Jamie will be going out with people, and that's just at the elementary schools that we'll be reviewing. But I asked Lance if he wouldn't mind. Lance just came back. They left Sunday. He came back today, and Lance, just an update in terms of how the visit went this time.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just like to say on behalf of the Washington learning community, thank you to the school board for your service to our community and your leadership. We appreciate you for that. I was honored to get to travel on Sunday to Ohio, to Steubenville again, along with 11 other staff members representing 4 schools in our district. During that visit yesterday, we were able to visit an elementary school and a middle school and to see Success for All in action. In addition, our people there were able to ask a lot of questions and get a lot of answers. And as those things usually go, when we got those answers, there were some more questions, and we're confident that we can get responses to those as well. But we got a chance to debrief afterwards and just kind of talk through the things we'd seen in middle school with the people that talked at the elementary school. I would say I think some of the takeaways were similar to our last trip, and some of the takeaways were new because you have a new group of people representing different schools, different perspectives, and so that was I thought that was good because our knowledge is growing about this program. Jim mentioned that there's another trip this week, and so we're excited to hear back from Kansas as well, just to see how a different school district with a different perspective has used this focus. I guess I would also want to say I'm grateful to the 11 staff members that volunteered their time to make this trip and to learn more about the program for our whole school district. And now more people are a resource across the district.
So similar with what we've done before, we'll invite, people from this group, to present, whether or not it's a special board meeting. That's probably what I'd be looking to, if we could get that assembled for the special, this time to get a more detailed report and have some of our teachers and principals sharing. We'll do that similar to what we did in the past.
Both the public and to the board, correct?
Right,
Yep.
right here.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know too. I mean, it's one of the best things about doing this is obviously everybody talks about betting. There is no better way to bet something than seeing it in action firsthand. So there's going to be good and bad, and I liked the last update from them. So I want to make sure that we can hear from those teachers as well, because it sounds like we have some different opinions. I'd like to hear that.
And again, everybody knows that there's extensive information published on the web. We do have curriculum, that people have reviewed at the school sites. I believe it's now here at central office. So there is curriculum available. Since the 7 has it. So again, we've been looking for others to weigh in, to our assessment, trying to thoroughly vet this and engage in that process.
So as far as the cost as well, we've heard from public as far as the costs to SFA. Is it possible that we can, get that number, or maybe to provide some of that question that's associated? Is it possible?
We've provided that cost before. Angela has reported and we've shared that out. Again, we started with the 2 pilots. That's where we were starting. I think at that time it was $750,000 for 3 years for those 2 schools. But now with the interest, obviously that it's expanded, but we do have estimates on that too.
I think the same about the vetting.
The vetting costs.
In terms of costs,
Yeah.
we can provide that.
But at the same time, I'd actually also like to see the costs then. If we're going to look at that, then we need the full picture, and we need to run a cost analysis of what it costs us to vet the other programs with all of those teachers who were involved and all the hours that it took and the subs that it took to vet that. And I'd like to remind everyone here, including the public, that this has been an ongoing vetting process since basically August. This is not something brand new. And there are over 50 people, I think, involved in going on site, and different members that have been not chosen but have volunteered. And the majority, I believe, have not been supportive of SFA in the past and have walked away feeling very differently. So it's a reminder to everyone that some of the information that you're receiving is not always accurate, and that we have received much different information from those who have gone out to the schools.
And I believe, with the other vetting too, I think a lot of people are volunteering their time there too. I mean, it's, again, this is drawing attention, which is not bad, it's good, but I appreciate that comments because we do want to make an informed decision. And it all comes back to why are we doing this in the first place? And it's because of our results aren't where we want them to be. And I think everybody agrees with that 25 to 30% reading proficiency levels is unacceptable. And that's why this is so important. So if we want to talk about costs, we also have to consider the cost of remediation, or the long-term costs that are impacting the students who may not be as equipped as they could be.
Well, and I don't honestly know of, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't know historically of any other curriculum being analyzed in this fashion before.
I would like to
And
remind,
criticize.
it isn't a, I mean, but yes, this does have curriculum elements, but it isn't the fact that this is a reform program rather than a curriculum.
That's true.
It kind of gives that, discussion different direction when you're speaking of it being as a curriculum versus a school reform program, because while that school reform program has the requirement of a curriculum, it isn't necessarily that we're saying that we're putting together a specific curriculum. It is just required. And the bigger picture is that it is a reform program. So, Tony?
Yeah, if I could just add, you know, if we haven't answered all the questions that are out there, I think we should really make an effort to expand that Q&A, just to include everything, just so that, you know, a lot of the questions we get are, they seem to rhyme with one another, or just, you know, similar questions. And if there's, it sounds like there may be some that we haven't fully answered, and I think that we should just really double check that and make sure that everything's updated on there.
Which is really, that's very important, you know, that we provide and are public and transparent, you know, to the greatest extent we can.
Can I make one other comment? I know I'm really putting myself out there with saying this. I've done it before though, so I just will do it again. But, you know, I just want to comment that the idea that the board is using SFA to restrict access to books in our library is ludicrous.
Oh, yeah.
And I would step down from this board in a heartbeat if I thought that that was ever even mentioned in this school district. I lay my reputation on the fact that there's no way under the sun that this board is trying to restrict access to books. Period.
Matt?
Yeah, Mr. File, so thank you, Kathy, for being honest and forthright. Do you believe that the resources spent? Well, my first question is, how precedent is it to have sent people to different districts to review or audit or look at, or whatever word we want to use, other curriculums or total school reform programs? How usual is that in your experience?
You know, my experience, we've done things where people have visited, not to the extent that we are now, but, you know, this, as was mentioned, you know, just now, this is a whole school reform, you know, so the board is really looking in terms of what is it going to take to become a top tier performing and achieving school district. And so it's a matter of business as usual in terms of where we're going with incremental change, or is it requiring something more? So I think the visitation here is the justification of it is because it is a major expense, both for not doing something or to do it. So it's really protecting your investment by gaining as much as you can before going down that road in terms of, will this bring us the result? Will this contribute to bringing the results? Because as I've mentioned before, there's no question that I think we can match our faculty and staff with anybody. You know, the explanation in the past for the past, part of that's curriculum, and I think part of it is that we lack some systems that need to be in place. You know, so this is where this whole school comes in. What are we doing individually in our schools, and then collectively? We've heard a lot, you know, and all we have to do is look at our discussion and how much time we spent looking at student discipline, right? You know, in terms of what did it take for us to really kind of come up to speed in that investment, you know, and we're looking for a return, and all of a sudden we're recognizing we're not even implementing it across the board consistently. So that's reflective of our systems types problems. So again, this is part of that rationale. We have to figure out how to move together collectively, you know, down a path that's going to give us the return that we're looking for. And it's not taking fault. It's a matter of what's missing here. And I think part of it is systems thinking. You know, we don't have an integrated systems approach to resolving our issues.
So my follow-up to that is, do you believe that spending the resources that you have already by sending principals and staff and teachers to Steubenville and to Kansas is worth it?
Without question.
Thank you for answering that.
Oh, I didn't want to make a speech. I want to kind of put some perspective on this. That's always been my job. Not here, but, you know, in my life, I guess. Really, what we have on our hands here is a school system that is in atrocious condition. You know, our buildings are crumbling. The students are like Lord of the Flies. I mean, the discipline stuff is just absolutely out of control in places. I mean, you know, I read stuff like where there's beating and punching and biting and etc. I mean, that's just, and our scores, if you haven't noticed, have gone down for like the last 8 years. I mean, we used to, you know, we used to be one of the best school systems in the whole damn state. We used to be like a place where people were really proud to graduate from Lincoln High School. I'm sure a lot of people still are because there's a lot of good stuff there. But we have really deteriorated over a fairly short period of time. I would say a decade. So I really am eager to salvage that situation and turn it around. However, you know, there's so much that is now being proposed and not explained that a lot of the citizens and maybe even some of us school board members are, you know, we get one chance on this. If we're going to turn this system around, we get one chance on this. And what we've got is we've got a proposal for Success for All, which, boy, in spite of my searching, I haven't found a whole lot that's reassuring about that, except for Jim, you say it's good, and you know the people that sell the wares say it's good, and there's a couple schools in the United States. It's a big and expensive program. If we don't have our act together on this, if teachers aren't on board, if citizens aren't satisfied with the answers they're getting, if the community has a great deal of uncertainty and insecurity about where we're taking them, our one chance to turn this system around is going to be fumbled. So I think that we shouldn't be in a really big hurry to rush into the battle on this. I mean, you know, people like Kathy has said, what do you mean not in a hurry? You know, this, you know, we need to act on this right away. We do. But we need to have all the shareholders, all the stakeholders, all the professional people in this system behind what's being proposed. And at this point, there are still much more uncertainties and unanswered questions. I mean, Dana's questions were excellent questions. I thought the first speaker raised a whole lot of good things that we need to think about. And that's an indication that we have a lot of work to do in terms of public relations and in terms of making the case. And by sending, you know, teachers to Kansas and to Ohio, it's probably a good thing, but that's not enough.
So Carrie, what would you propose that we do then differently so are you proposing that we should slow it down and not react to what we have going on? Or should we, because I think that, you know, us sending out individuals to, that work for our school district, not once, but twice, to actually get the eyes on, I think that is seeking our professional staff.
Yeah, but I think
that, you know, the certain situation that we have does require some sort of expediency if we're going to respond to it. We could just let it keep going and continue on the way it has been and not act. But then those individuals that are in school at that time and encountering what they're encountering, they're getting shortchanged too. So while I understand that,
I don't have any dispute with that at all.
Well,
I
guess I'm just
totally
asking,
agree
what
with
would you
that, but
prefer?
I'm saying there are questions that continue to be raised that nobody has had an answer to.
Have we?
Like what's going to happen to the elective courses? Do we have enough teachers? I mean, there just needs to be a better planning system here to put all the parts together into a coherent presentation that people can say, oh, that you got me there. But we haven't done that because we just keep Well, not answering the questions for one thing, and we just keep not being systematic. I mean, you say we need to be systematic about this because we're going for a big referendum now. I mean, we're talking about tons of bucks here, which adds to the gravity of our situation. I mean, if we get that referendum and we blow that money, this school district will not recover for a decade or more.
So Angela, is this SFA funded via the referendum?
There is funding in there through partially from ESSER funds and then some other funds. I mean,
Okay, so it isn't funded via the referendum, correct?
not directly, it's not like directly tied to the referendum. It's tied within the projections and the budgets built to make, you know, the
Right.
scenarios and everything. If I can, it's okay for me to add, but
Yeah, I'll yield the floor.
no, I'm, you know, I think in the past, the district has sent, teachers on many occasions. I think when they did UC Carlton, they sent teachers, you know, to other states. It's not atypical. So I'm happy, and I've been tasked by Jim already to get the information together to make the sort of as apples to apples as we can make the financial, aspects of those two programs put together. And I'm happy to put that together. We have the information. But the challenging part with any sort of curriculum, and Jamie, please add it as you would like. You know, there's always ongoing implementation. It's not just there's this cost and it's in a box and wrapped in a pretty bow and that's it. You know, there's ongoing professional development. There's other aspects to that, you know, we're working on implementing bridges yet in professional development with that, and Pam can, you know, feel free to add more into that. So we can provide that, but it's much more complicated than that on a fiscal perspective. So,
Jamie, did you have anything to add to that at all?
I really don't at this point. I appreciate some of the questions that some people are asking, and we are going to be doing our due diligence to answer those questions, especially in regards to special education programming, in regards to the specials. And sometimes this implementation can be in a variety of ways, and that will impact how the staffing works.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be gathering all of that information.
I understand. I mean, it is a
It's
data
a
gathering
process.
stage.
It is a
Right.
process.
Matt, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a little bit too, with in conjunction with what Matthew and Kathy had said too. Like Matthew had asked if this is something usual that we do. I mean, and I guess maybe just to show that we're putting forth an extra effort to vet this. And Kathy had mentioned and said something about, you know, I don't remember any other curriculum, even though this is a school reform, I understand, going through this much scrutiny as before. And I do have to remind everybody that, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, it is where it's coming from. This is coming from a political response. It's strictly in response to Matt Santoni. It's strictly in response to what we're doing on this board. If this was the other board, I would be the one at that podium, and you would ignore me just like you did prior to me being on this board. So I feel like we're doing a lot as it took vetting this process. A lot of people are talking about slowing down. Carries really into, you know, same thing that we're hearing from that specific side of things in about slowing down. But then, you know, everybody's going to criticize Tony when he's asking us to slow down about spending $65 million or whatever in the next however many years. I don't think that that's wrong for somebody to say, hey, I just want to make sure that we've got everything put together, and I understand all of this. He wants to vet that, but no, let's ram that right through in the citizens. But let's slow down on helping the kids with the school reform. To be honest with you, it's so ridiculously split. No matter what we do on this board, there's going to be a certain group, maybe 10 people, that are going to be loud about and against it. And I don't really have any opinion about that. I was the same side over there as well. But this is my time on the board, okay? And I'm not gonna get into that. I want to drive forward and improve the scores. I want to improve the schools and improve their education. If that has to do with going with a referendum, fantastic. If it has to do with doing the school reform, fantastic. I like what SFA has done. For you to say you have no idea as to what, they're not selling you on it. They've been selling you on it the same way they've been selling me on it. It's been fantastic. Everything that we have heard some negative things like that, and we have some things that we need to work through. Every school district is different. I can understand that. But as of right now, this to me is the best option. And there is no other way to vet something more fully than having people go there and see it firsthand. Intro to reading and stuff, this SFA has been around for 40 years. A lot of people have been bragging about why are we going to something so old? But you want to vet something new? This has been vetted for the last 4 decades.
Kathy?
I gotta respond.
Yeah, please.
I didn't say I wasn't interested in the improvement of the program and the betterment of the students. I never, ever said that, Matt.
I didn't say you did.
Yes, you did.
No.
Yes, you did. You
said you weren't getting sold on it.
I beg your pardon?
I said you said you weren't getting sold on SFA.
There's a whole lot of questions that I still think have not been answered. And I'm looking forward to getting those answers.
Well, you're on the board.
Matthew, will you shut the hell up? I've got the.
Oh, because I'm not actually getting the answer to those questions.
Hey, guys, this isn't gonna be a back and forth. If it's a discussion, it's a discussion.
Oh, it's fine.
Discussion.
Blatant lie, I'm not gonna accept.
Oh, Matthew, geez. Let's
All right.
clean
Kathy,
it up.
I'm gonna give the floor to Kathy.
Right. The thing that I'd like to say, whether it's SFA or any other program, it does have to go through the board. There is a process. And we're in the process of vetting something that will come before the board. We're getting more and more information as it goes. In my time here, which hasn't been that long, was the longest serving member. Longest serving member on the board. Yeah. There's a difference. We've never had this before, where we've gone through all of this before we've gone to take a vote. So I find it very unusual. I do know with Lucy Calkins, from the things that we've been told by past board members and other people in the community, that this is not what was done with Lucy Calkins at all. It was just like, you're doing this. They just came, it was a super brief, a couple of months at best. And now you're going to you're going to be doing Lucy Calkins. And there were people who went there, but it wasn't this, long vetting process. So we will find those things. I do believe that we will get answers, but I think we all have to caution about things that we're hearing instead of waiting for the actual facts. And it's okay to ask questions, but in a way that is both respectful and not with innuendo. And that's part of why I got angry about the idea of anyone on this board being accused of shortchanging our kids when it comes to reading and having access to books. I would be a board member if that was true.
So since you're pointing me out.
So is there anything else in germane to the Success for All update that, Matt?
I just wanted to have one quick comment is what I've heard from Gary and the other people is what I want to instill is that results do matter, Gary. And the fundamental is we want our results of our children to have good character and good skills in reading, writing, and math. So ultimately, we're not going to have I'm not going to have all the particular answers about a certain thing, about one aspect of a program or reform or a curriculum. Like to ask the details about what one thing is, we're going to have to go through certain things and we're going to have to figure them out as they come. Now, I'm not saying that when I'm just making crap up. I'm saying that that's life. So to try to ask certain questions that aren't feasibly going to have answers until we see the staffing or we see the issues of where we need to put more resources. Now, the viable question about the writing, that's a great question. We know something has a downfall. Let's look at that and let's find a solution. So we have to hold together that the children are the most important thing, but we have to have accountability with the results. So we don't have a lot of other options. Right now, the other proposal about reading was into reading, okay? I don't want to talk about it too much, but it's a brand new program. Okay, so the vetting on that, well, how much vetting do we have in a brand new program? That's my first point. Success for All, we're trying we're trying. We're trying to figure out what's bad about it, what's good about it, and how we're gonna try to make it work, if we're even gonna do it. Like, we're all working at it, but questions are good. And that's why I keep asking our superintendent, is this what we think we should do? And if I believe that he's the best person for the candidate for this, our community, I'm gonna trust what he's asking us to do. And yes, we're all tied together. We get one chance, Gary. And yes, if this fails, it's gonna look bad on me. It's gonna look bad on you. And then the new board's gonna get a chance at it. And that's life, but I'll own it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Tony,
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I appreciate a lot of the public input earlier. And I'm glad, you know, frankly, that we have, the community concerned about the district finances, because, you know, we are, you know, in an area that's, we're gonna have to figure that out, right? But on that note, you know, I think it's worth noting in our discussion that the community spent, you know, I'd say approaching $1 billion in the last decade. Angela can probably give us an exact number, but it's probably like 700-800 million, whatever it is. And, you know, that's a lot of money to get 29% reading proficiency. So I bring this up because, you know, the cost of SFA compared to India reading is really, in my opinion, is peanuts compared to what we spend every year. And picking the right program is far more important in the long run. And, you know, further, and Jim touched on this earlier, and I think as we dive deeper into the due diligence, I think the community really needs to see the areas, you know, above and beyond just the reading components, which, you know, are really attractive. But just like the systems approach that you talked about, I think we really need to shed some light on that, because this is really apples and oranges, right? So yeah, the cost is going to be higher, but again, peanuts compared to, you know, $700 million or whatever we spent the last decade. But you look at the additional components that we're going to be gaining that we're lacking now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of, you know, gaps in our communications internally that this could solve from one to the other.
You're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
any other further discussion for the SFA update? All right, then moving on to the strategic plan updates.
You know, just with that, the plan was that we would be voting, you know, even though there could be some loose ends, that we would continue with, you know, to hand this over to the board, and then we would own it and start doing the strategies. Brett was not available for tonight, and he's not available on our next special. So I would suggest that we move that final decision making, you know, even though it's really kind of that handoff where we then own it to the first meeting in February. You know, with the strategic plan. I mean, we're working on the metrics right now, and stuff like this, but he's not available, you know, wasn't for today or next special on Wednesday.
And this is to expand upon the draft that we've already looked at.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, most of his work is done. You know, right now it's working with administration on metrics and stuff like that. So a lot of it's already in our court, you know, but it's just kind of completing our work with our contractor, even though he's identified that he would continue, you know, working with us, you know, as we were working to make sure that we have a good strategic plan in place and that handoff is good.
Any questions regarding the strategic plan update then?
How's that internal process coming along?
Well, Jamie has been really spending a lot of time trying to peel back the onion in terms of what data are we using now. And Jamie, do you want to, you know, in terms of what is our current metrics? Okay.
I can. I have a meeting scheduled with our district administrators, our principals, coming up. I believe it's on the 18th, where we're going to be selecting those common assessments across the board that everyone is required to give. Right now, we have a few metrics that we can use. We can use graduation rate, and we can use ACT. But we don't have scores that are standardized. We have scores, so I don't want you to think we have nothing, but we have metrics from like fundus and canal, and there's a lot of subjectivity in that type of a score. So what we're looking for are things that we can put in place that everyone's going to take. They'll have to put the trend data in that we already have, and then we'll put in base measures for those assessments that we indicate.
And we would also obviously have other metrics that are outside of the instructional area, you know, that we'd be looking at.
Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding the update? All right. Next item on the agenda is the items brought forward from December 12th Personnel Committee meeting. Mike, would you care to speak to that?
Sure. I think the first item on there is the tuition assistance agreement.
Yeah.
And just for your knowledge, that there were 2 times that the district supported 2 different teachers with ESSER money relative to the RIGHT program. The RIGHT program is Residence in Teacher Education, and it's offered through CESA 6 in Oshkosh. Most often, I mean, really most often, it's used to help support somebody who wants to be a special education teacher. And we all know the shortage we have in special education relative to teachers. So we financed 2 opportunities. And what the other piece of information I definitely want you to know is that each one of these opportunities cost the district about $10,000. Once again, that was ESSER money at the time. One of the teachers finished the program in 1 year and is continuing to teach with us today. Another teacher that was in the program found out that and decided it was not a fit and exited the program. This tuition assistance agreement is one now going forward where the district is willing, if the district decides that they want this candidate in this program, that's the first thing. And then the district would be willing to support this person with $10,000 to pay for the program. The program can either be 1 year, 1.5, or 2 years, depending on how hard the person and how much time the person wants to put in the program. Here's the important thing with this tuition assistance program agreement is that if indeed the district were to finance somebody's opportunity to become licensed and certified in special education, K-12, the district would then finance that program for about $10,000, and the person would enter into an agreement with the district that should they leave after the first year, meaning they go in for a year, they get their license, they get their certification, we pay $10,000, and then they bolt on us to a different district, they would owe us 80% of that $10,000. If they leave after 2 years, 60%, 3 years, 40%, 4 years, 20%. If they stayed with us a full 5 years, then they could, when they decided to leave the district, there would be no obligation for them to refund any money to the district. So it's a tuition assistance agreement. I think it's a good plan, and I would hope the board would consider approving it tonight.
So Mike, I have a question for you in regards to the person who entered the program and we paid for at least in partial for that program. Were they obligated then to pay part of that back?
They were not it's a great question. They were not obligated because there was no tuition assistance agreement in place at the time. However, the good news is they did refund the district the $2,500 that the district expended for that 1 year.
So that's very nice.
That's very nice.
Yeah, it worked out really well.
So do we have an individual who wants to take advantage of this now?
We do not. Good question, Kathy. We do not have someone on our radar right now. However, it would be great to have a program in place because going into next year, if we have an opportunity to hire a good person, quality person that we think has teacher talent and a good skill set relative to soft skills, then it would be it'd be great to have the program in place so that we could just move forward and hire a person and add, have a special education teacher where we might not have a special education teacher because of the shortage.
Mike, for a point of clarification, would this be, a possibility is this an existing employee that is certified in something else and then maybe wants to go into special ed to help the need, or they just want to? Is that the scenario, or is there an emergency license approved for them in that field for that duration in the beginning? Or what's the scenario that's played out or you foresee to happen?
So, so the way the licensing works is that they would have a license with stipulations for 1 year at a time. The stipulations are that you make adequate progress in the right program, the RIT, Residence and Teacher Education Program. Should you make adequate progress, and let's say you complete the program in 1 year, then you would get your provisional license and you would not be on an LWS1 any longer. If you decide, if the person was going to engage in a program for 1.5 years or 2 years, then they would have to, after year 1, apply for another LWS1 license with stipulations for 1 year. And once again, that's when they have to make the adequate progress. So does that make sense?
Yep, it's kind of important to note that how this is used and how it can be used to benefit the district. You've explained it very clearly to me. So somebody can go into the field with the license of stipulation for 1 year. They can renew that for up to, obviously there's a term you set, a 5-year track plan. So technically they could do it for 5 years if they were on the 5-year track and be a special ed teacher for 5 years with license with stipulation. That would be one example. Thank you.
Well, let me just clarify there that if they were in the right program for 1 year and they completed the program, the second year they would have a provisional license. The 5-year piece is that when we make the investment of $10,000, and if they complete 5 full years with us, they would not owe us any money after 5 full years if they resigned and went to another district.
So the course length of the right program is how long?
It is either 1 year, 1.5, or 2, depending on the individual. And we have to understand that when these people go into the right program and we hire them as a special education teacher, they are new to the field of special education. So you can only imagine how many hours they're going to be putting into their teaching. And then they have this other program on the side that they have to get their licensure through. And so some of them do it 1 year, some of them do it 1.5. Some say, I want 2 years. I want to spread it out a little bit. And that's also very workable.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the tuition assistance agreement.
I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is the proposed new clerical position in the business office. Angela, did you want to speak to the need?
I can just say very briefly, just that this is a position, an identified need that we had started talking about over 1.5 years ago, and we did much studying and comparison and just sort of dissecting of all the positions in the business office as things have changed, and we need to provide a separation of duties just from an audit standpoint that's recommended just to protect the district overall. So we've implemented some nice protective measures that way, and the sort of realigning of the duties within the business office will help with that. One of the very exciting pieces of this too is the district is receiving funding from the MPSD Foundation to support most of the cost of this position. And the reason for that is that historically the district has supported the loan and scholarship program. And last year we had to take on an additional weight of work because Associated Bank wasn't willing to help us with it anymore. So we took a lot of time to thoughtfully consider this and put this proposal together.
Mike or Jim, did either of you guys have anything to say to the position at all, or before I open it up for more?
No, I'm just supportive of that. Some of this is a responsible part. Responsibility of the business office to separation duties. This allows for separation duties, and there is significant labor that's associated with supporting the foundation. and for them to reimburse that, it's justifies the expense here in terms of meeting those two needs.
Any other questions, Matt?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the new clerical position in the
I'll
business
second
office and seconded by Matt. And any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next item on the agenda is the proposed special education paraprofessional position at Jefferson Elementary.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yep, thank you, Colin.
Yeah.
In the spring or May of 2022, the district, when the district was doing staffing, they decided that they wanted to add an EBD, emotionally behavioral program, self-contained program at a Southside school, and they chose Jefferson. When they decided to move this program, add a program over at Jefferson, Jefferson absorbed this entire new program with no additional staffing. Today, fast forward from May of 22 to September, October, November. Today, Jefferson has had 8 students, special education students, come to the school from out of district. In addition to the 8 special education students from out of district, 1 student at Jefferson also qualified for special education. So they have 9 additional students in special education. They have 5.5 FTEs relative to paraprofessionals in special education. However, 4 of those FTEs are on one-on-one with students, or what we call child-specific paraprofessionals with students. So, with all that being said, if the board were to approve a new paraprofessional, special education paraprofessional position at Jefferson, we would always have a paraprofessional and a teacher present in the classroom. Sometimes right now we have one adult in the classroom, and the EBD self-contained classroom can become fairly emotionally charged fairly quickly. So it's very important to have a couple of adults where we can always move students to different environments, different settings, and help counsel them and do things like that. In addition, with this position, we'll be able to support students, special education students in the regular ed classrooms much more often and much better, as well as transitioning them to regular education and back, and in the EBD self-contained classroom. Just to have another adult available is going to make a big difference relative to keeping students on task, engaged in the instruction. So we're hoping that you'll support a special education paraprofessional position at Jefferson.
Katie, did you have anything that you wanted to add into that at all, or?
I think Mike summarized it pretty well. I did share with the personnel committee, similar to what Mike had said about transfer-ins, as we struggle to predict this time of year some of these challenging students that come to our district. Our plan is to work out a system to be a little bit more proactive for next school year, so that we have these positions and we're not having to wait for this process of going to committee and going to board approval, because that ends up, costing us some sub pays and coverage in other ways. And it really delays the opportunity for staff in a building and in a program to build relationships with our challenging students who really thrive on the people and the skills that they bring to the table to help them find success in school. So I appreciate the opportunity and the consideration, and your willingness to be flexible this time of year, with the goal that we will have some plans in place for next school year.
Is there any other, Terry?
All you have to do is read the end of the sentence. It says that behavior manifests itself through hitting, kicking, punching, throwing items, and profanity. I mean, to vote against this request would be cruel and unusual, I think.
Yeah, and I would
Yeah.
just encourage us to remember that behavior is a form of communication. So our, like, just to be respectful, it is.
Okay.
And I just witnessed maybe some adult behavior that wasn't necessarily the most productive for
No, it's okay.
conversation. So I just want to make sure that we are preserving the dignity of our students and understanding that students with disabilities will present those behaviors because they have these challenging needs, and the ability to support our staff through other human beings and providing them with the training necessary to really get in front of this and help students find more productive ways to regulate their emotions and behaviors is really, really important. So thank you.
That's good point.
All right, so we'd be looking for a motion.
I make the motion.
All right,
I'll
Kathy,
second it.
seconded by Carrie. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the proposed 2023-2024 district calendar.
Thank you again, Colin.
Yep.
So let me just highlight a few points with this calendar. And that is, there's 185.5 teacher contract days and 175 student contact days, consistent with past calendars for many years. We have a transition day for 5K, 6th grade freshmen and new students on August 31st. And I contacted DPI to make sure that we could have that day prior to September 1st, because you are all well aware that we cannot start school prior to September 1st. What DPI told me was that we could have the transition day August 31st prior to September 1, because it is not technically considered an instructional day. So we want to get that day in, because September 1st is a Friday, right before Labor Day weekend. It really didn't make sense to come to school for one day and then go for 3 days. So we are going to start school. All students will start school on Tuesday, September 5th, next fall, the day after Labor Day. Lincoln High School's graduation is the same traditional Friday, June 7th. We have one inclement weather day. That's typical. Spring breaks are traditional spring break, the end of March. Winter breaks are traditional winter break, December 22 through January 1. And other than that, do you have any questions regarding the proposed calendar?
I've heard some talking amongst, with principals and teachers that in December, it kind of looks like the same way we did it this year. They had a staff development day right before the Christmas break. And it seemed like to me is there any way that they would be able to move that to afterwards, after the break? Before, like the day before they go to break, it just seems like it's kind of, everybody's so hyped up to get on break and everything, like how much you're going to actually get done on that.
Yeah, the recommendation to move it to that Friday was to it was on the December 11th date. It was on the Monday, and there was a recommendation to move it to the Friday so that students and families could, if they were going to travel, get a little head start on the Christmas Eve and the holiday. It could be moved back to the 11th. It's just
Could they move it to January? I guess could they move it to January 2nd? Like coming back, it seems like it'd be a lot easier to get back into the swing of things with that staff development day on the second. You think so? I don't know. I was just going by some opinions to what I heard. But I mean, if it's not, is this a concrete set in stone? Like as soon as we vote for this, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, once it's approved by the board, yes, it's fairly. That's it. We're not, So if you're going to send me back to the drawing board to make some changes, or if you're going to move a date tonight and then approve it.
It's like playing Jenga, isn't it? If you move one stick and it all falls down. So.
I was just bringing up some questions. That's all. Inquiring, I guess, if that's the way it's got to be, if that's the way it's got to be.
Did anybody have any other questions as far as or comments regarding the calendar?
Well, he brought it up, so I'll bring it up real quick. I was concerned about how many Fridays students were not in classroom instruction because of the special ed students, the routine that we need to consistently have, and regular ed kids as well. We need to develop routines. I know we all hate to hear it, but that's what we need to develop in our our day-to-day life is have a routine. So when we don't have the children in school, we're breaking that routine, and we're just, I don't like that to be I don't believe that that's a good necessity to be teaching our children to have off on Fridays. I don't think that's what made our country as great as it is. So that's my opinion.
The only concern I had was as far as the amount of professional development days. As we talk about the SFA implementation, it is heavy on professional development. Is that in line with what the needs for that program would be if we were to move forward, or any other program? Is that do we know that?
I can't answer that question. I don't know if
There would be an extensive training with professional development. We haven't done any side by sides in terms of how we would schedule that. So, this is routinely what we do is to put aside, professional development days. So we'd have to say that we'd come back with that,
If it needs to be changed.
if there would be a need to change or how we incorporate that into our work.
I believe it's 3 days that SFA is.
And a lot of the training is at the beginning, and but then there's some of the work that comes in is with certain staff, in terms of as they're reviewing, in terms of what we're doing in this classroom. So sometimes that's incorporating. I think we're getting ahead a little bit in terms of trying to plan that out. In terms of looking kind of in a crystal ball in terms of how that might match up with our calendar right now.
We have a pretty one-track mind. I keep thinking about professional development or time for our teachers would be a great opportunity the day before break to renew code of conduct and behaviors so that when they can come back from break, they can dive into it right away. That's something we seem to have been lacking this year. So it would be an opportunity to do that. But that's just my one.
It's a good one. It's a great.
And go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I just want to say, we have a couple of board members that were concerned about that, the 22nd of December. We could easily, that was scheduled for Monday, December 11th. So if the board would like to move that staff development day to that Monday, I can move that very easily.
So which Monday are you looking? No, the 11th. It just makes sense with the holiday as far as the New Year's. I mean, they got off the 1st. The other holiday would be New Year's Eve, usually, I guess. And they come back right away on the 2nd. That's kind of the way it happened this year too. I mean, even Two Rivers didn't have class, and we were coming back. I just see it as being able to maximize the effect of having a staff development day. Coming back into it, I think it would be a lot easier to slide into. Getting back into the swing of things with it being on the 2nd. The reason why I say that is because prior to this Christmas break, everybody's minds are somewhere else, you know what I mean? And then coming back, one thing you got to understand too, I think, especially with teachers on any type of a professional, profession, they're starting their day the day before. They're preparing for class that next day. I mean, it really, I would think that to cover more of the holiday, give them time to get back into it. They could do more preparing for getting back into it and things like that on the 2nd. That's why I was bringing it up. I mean, I don't seems like it would be something that I would want to push for, to move that to the 2nd of January.
Are you making a motion?
Can I make a motion to do that?
Yeah, you can.
Can I make a motion to change that to the 2nd of January? I'll second for discussion.
All right, so there's
a clarification on that. So make a motion to change
Professional staff development day from December 22nd to January 2nd. Because as of right now, they got them coming back into school on that Tuesday, January 2nd, full swing. Sunday and Monday are the holidays. And then immediately right back into class. I think that to help with the teachers' preparation, I really think that using that staff development day for staff development as well, but they're also able to prepare a little bit going, you know what I mean? They're not, I'm trying to not have them digging into their holidays like we did them this year. I mean, to be honest with you, it's kind of, I felt it was kind of crap, but that was just my own opinion. And I've got a child that goes to school, you know, here, so I know how the, maybe it just seems like, it would be better to have the second, that's all.
Okay. Does that work, Mike?
That works. We can do that. Mhm.
Okay. Has there been any feedback from the staff? I mean, I really, you know, I'm just wondering. Huh? No, I'm sorry, I was asking. Yeah, I'm asking Jim or Mike, I guess, is there a preference with the staff, what they would prefer, or?
I don't think it's, I think it's kind of a horse apiece, whether it's December 22nd or January 2nd. I mean, from the staff, you know, and Matt makes a lot of good points. So we could easily move it to January 2nd. Nope, that's not an issue. I mean,
So would the 22nd then just be a regular school day, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the 22nd, it would become a student contact day, a regular school day. And of course, January 2nd, it would become a staff development day, no school for students that day.
I'm only taking it from the feedback that I've got from teachers and principals. And as a parent, I guess I kind of feel the same way.
Is there, I mean,
What?
I don't know, I mean, I think you're gonna have, it's gonna be horse apiece, and you're gonna have some that are in favor, some that aren't.
What was your question?
As far as that, is there any other further discussion regarding the proposed amendment?
I don't know. Yeah, we could ask. I wish we could ask it. Otherwise, it had to be so concrete right now.
You could table it, we could table the calendar.
Yes.
Okay, I motion to table the calendar.
You have to
Oh, no,
rescind.
we got a motion.
You have to rescind.
Mike, what would that do for if Matt is considering tabling or putting forward a motion to table, what would that do for the timelines that are needed for the calendar? Would that mess with that at all?
Well, we'd have to bring the calendar back to you on the 25th in a couple of weeks. So I guess my question would be is, if there was if we moved it to the 2nd, I mean, to ask staff whether they'd like the 22nd or the 2nd, I mean, is that what we're doing? And we're gonna, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem asking the staff. You know, I fully think that that's a good idea to ask them.
It's completely in the board's purview to determine if
Oh,
this
yeah. It's
professional
not that
development
big a
day is
deal.
on the 2nd or the 22nd. So if we want to change it, there was a motion, I seconded it, we can vote it and it's done.
Yeah.
Or we just don't, we keep it the way it is. So you don't have, we don't, the problem is we're all trying to be nice.
Are you
about
keeping
everything.
are you keeping your motion, or are you withdrawing it?
No, I'm keeping my motion.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a motion on the table to move the professional development day from the 22nd to the 2nd of January. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed.
I agree with that. I really would have liked to, I think, ask, but I also agree with Matt too. It's gonna agree to just do it.
All right, so then, that being said, moving on to the next item on the agenda is
So-
the items. Oh,
Colin,
sorry.
Can I just
Yes,
interrupt
sir.
you a second? So we had a motion, we voted on moving the day.
Oh,
But
we didn't do the whole
we
calendar.
vote
My
on the
apologies. Thank you.
calendar?
Yeah, now bringing it back to the district calendar.
I'll make a motion that we approve the
As
calendar
amended.
as amended.
I second that.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, great. Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
check. All right, so then the next item on the agenda is the items brought forward from the December 21st, 2022 Finance Budget Committee meeting. First item on the agenda is the donations for municipal baseball field scoreboard. Angela, did you want to?
Yes, we had 5 donors, local donors, which list them up here. It was Nelson Truck and Equipment, Phipps Construction, let me find in here. difficult thing right now.
Culver's Alliance and Laundry Systems, and Parker Hannafin.
Thank you so much. So
Yes.
yeah, we had very generous donors too, and they'll be able to be featured on the scoreboard at the municipal baseball field. And so we're working on getting that ordered and all set to go. And we're just looking to move forward with that to have the accepted donations.
I think it's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's, Matthew and his company, right, made a good contribution.
I realize it's a policy that, you know, it's gotta be approved by us if it's over 2,000, so I'd make the motion to accept the donations.
I second.
All right, great. We have a motion and a second. I would also like to extend some gratitude to those 5 businesses. Appreciate very much. So thank you. So all those in favor for the donation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Matt abstains. All right, the next item on the agenda is the process for donations, update to policy 7230. Angela, basically just changing the amount from 2,000 to 5,000, correct?
Well, I wanted to bring that up just briefly, and I think we do need to pull it back to committee, though it's very simple. So the idea was to make it so that if someone donated $5,000 on the button, they wouldn't have to come forward for approval. And really the language of the policy is written like that. So since the motion was to amend it to 5,001 cent or what, you know, I think we just pull it back, you know, and just to go through the process again.
We can seek an amendment from the general board.
Okay,
Yes.
we can. Okay, if we're able to do that.
It is written in there more than 5,000.
Yeah, and then in the, you know what, and that might be on, because I intended to have this discussion here. When we were, the minutes of the meeting reflect that we were gonna make it 5,001 pennies. So really, you know, the attached policy, you could approve that as it's amended if, or I mean, as it's suggested to be amended if the committee is okay with that.
Kathy, if I remember correctly, you were the one that made that motion out of committee. Did you want to make an amendment to this motion then to bring it to the current?
However it works best.
Whatever.
Yeah, we're okay. If it's a $5,000 donation, it wouldn't have to come to the board. So if it'd be any cents above that, then it would be. So exactly what you want is really already written into the.
Is it written that way? Okay, so,
And then
so
it's-
It doesn't need to be amended.
Well, the
Yeah.
amount needs to be amended from 2,000 to 5,000.
Okay.
And that's an oversight on my side. I should have caught that in the meeting, but I mentioned it here, so we get it fixed, so.
so do I need to make an amendment then of the 5,001 cents? A return to the original?
I'm not exactly sure how that works.
Let's just make, why don't I just make a motion now to return to the originally stated policy of more than $5,000 rather than more than $5,000.01,
That came out of committee. Yeah.
which came out of committee.
And is there a second? Okay, seconded. And any further discussion as to the amendment? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bringing it back to the original motion or original agenda item. Is there a motion to bring forward the policy change?
I make that motion.
All right, second.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
Is there any other changes besides the amount and more? Thank you.
And anything else? Seeing as how there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And that brings us to the items brought forth from the January 4th, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee meeting. The 2023 MPSD non-recurring operational referendum. This is information and possible action. Angela, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, there was information included in board book. I believe it was made available to the public as well, regarding the proposed non-recurring operational referendum. that could be placed on the ballot for the April 4th, 2023 election. Just in looking at the multiple factors as far as type, time, and amount for referendums that we have as options, we would as a district best be positioned to go for a non-recurring operational referendum at this point. Recurring has other implications that are not fiscally wise for us. As for the time period, just in the last couple of referendums, there just appears to be fatigue for coming back to the voters on such a quick timeline. And for the previous referendum, what we did is we brought the vote to the brought it to the voters at kind of the last minute. And so we're trying to be proactive from a sense that we want to not cause stress on our organization and to be able to plan more effectively by bringing it a year ahead of time should there be any concerns. Just in looking at the projections, that from just a basic financial standpoint, what's really challenging is the fact that over the last 2 fiscal years, we have not received additional revenue to through the per pupil revenue through the revenue limits. And that is the main source of additional funding the district receives over the course of time. Where it's not wise financially ever to, budget for expenses that are ongoing and continual for future years on one-time funding. Our state legislature has essentially said, balance your budgets with ESSER funding. And so like the 4.23% of our staff increases over the last 2 years are carried forward with no new revenue. So that, along with our ESSER funding dropping down or dropping off, I figured in the less the revenues and the expenditures for ESSER, and then also projecting out for staff compensation over the next 5 years tentatively. Increase in benefits for WRS and FICA, health insurance, transportation, energy costs, and budget additions. And the main reason are just inflationary impacts. The additions that are being proposed to the budgets for the referendum amounts include amounts for technology infrastructure. They're just updates that we're required to make every 5 years that are quite costly. And on their own would be difficult for the district to continue to manage without planning better financially. In order to better serve our staff, to have a intentionally planned out device replacement plan is part of this. Additional money to fund curriculum cycle adoptions, as that's an ongoing cycle with curriculum adoption. And then with facilities, $500,000 additional, in addition to about $250,000, which is already built into our current budget to make a more intentional impact on maintaining our facilities. And, we'll have more information on these individual buckets, but overall, just the last notes I'd say, like on the increases that we use, the bigger things that are hard to look into the future and to know exactly what the referendum or what the revenue forecast will be. But I've used what I feel are very conservative yet viable estimations on this. In addition, our equalized value growth of our property is tricky because the value debt went up extensively this last year, more than it has percentage-wise in decades. And so what happens is the more that you have to, that percentage increase impacts the mill rate greatly. So took very did a range of estimates on that for what the impact would be for the taxpayers. So overall, there's information that will be released to the public for this, but the ask is overall to, excuse me, just looking here to make sure I summarize my notes. Just one of the largest things that we do need to talk about, along with the changes in the budget, are just, we are looking at, when we went to the staffing process this year, a much more just a closer look at our staffing for with the student to teacher ratio. Over the last couple of years, we have lost 200 students, but we've not really adjusted our staffing. And so our FTE ratios, that's another just budget impact in general, that compared to other districts, we have just as a much smaller value compared to other districts. So, you know, there between our whole, you know, leadership team, we have a lot of work to do on the staffing, but what we've done and planned within the whole budget modeling for the referendum includes, you know, just money to sort of start reducing some of the staff in the areas. And so we've included those estimates in the scenarios as well. So overall, if you look at the history of revenues and expenditures, you know, the budgets, the revenues and expenditures will not be going up over 3% on the revenue or expenditure side when they've gone up much more in previous years. So that's just to try to really think of the health of our fund balance, because that's something we definitely have to keep in mind, as well as the impact of the taxpayers, and just making sure that we're providing a quality, you know, resources enough to provide a quality education to our students. So it's a lot to balance. So in sum, what we'll be asking, or what we're hoping the board will consider tonight, is approving a referendum ballot that would increase the revenue limit $5.2 million next year, which would be in addition to the 4.3 million. So it'd be 9.5 million total, 11 million in 24-25, 13 million in 25-26, 15 million in 26-27, and 17.5 million in 27-28. Two things that I want to mention yet is when a board approves such a referendum to be put on the ballot, if it was approved by the voters, if at any time the Board of Education still maintains its oversight of the budget at all times. And so if for some reason we would get to a point where we would not need $500,000 in a year, for example, the board could vote to under levy. The board always has that ability to do that. So we're looking back at some records. I'm not sure that MPSD is under levied at any time in recent history, but I'd have to look back. I could see if we have. But just more than anything, the main point is that the board retains its ability to have oversight on the budget. So that was just one question that was asked through committee, and that's very important. So it's not like if this goes to referendum and is approved, that we just have a blank check and we can do whatever we want with it. There's still the oversight and care of the budget in the best interest of the district. If the referendum would not pass, for a short period of time, we could sustain using some fund balance. It's never ever wise to use fund balance to manage your ongoing expenses, because staff and benefits, or compensation and benefits, are 80% of our entire budget. We would have to look at additional staff reductions in addition to the projections that we've made already in this, with eliminating funds or positions funded through ESSER and some additional FTE reductions. Right now, it was estimated about 7 FTE would be needed to reduce to start moving in that direction, but that would be a much larger discussion as to what we would do with that we haven't been able to get to, and we'll bring more to the board on that. So happy to take any questions.
I guess I want to bring this up because we talked about it in that finance and budget meeting. So I think we have to be really careful, because I think people are going to hear reduced staff, and that might be, and then that's just all what we hear, and it echoes, right? Yeah. So in the budget finance committee meeting, we did discuss how we would try doing it. I think that's a question for you and for Mike, and that it would be essentially looked at and hopefully done through retirement and resignations and balancing out where people are, not through eliminating people. So I guess I'd rather have you or Mike speak to that too, though, besides me just say that.
Mike, do you want to speak to that?
You're on mute, Mike.
I'm sorry. Regarding staffing, we always, anytime that we have a declining enrollment and we possibly are going to have less FTEs than a previous year, we always look at attrition first. We always hope that we can make things work with if we have to go with less people through retirements and resignation. When we're staffing, we're going to be fiscally prudent, fiscally responsible, yet educationally sound. I mean, at any time, if the Board of Education wants to increase class sizes, sure we can reduce. But at the end of the day, that may not be educationally sound, as you're all well aware of that. So I always like to say fiscally responsible yet educationally sound is where we want to staff. And hopefully throughout that process, if we indeed have 200 less students than a few years ago, we should be able to, just work through the staffing situation, and there may be some FTEs that we'll be able to capture. We'll see.
Did anybody have any other questions or comments regarding the referendum?
Yeah, I would just like to add, just really the genesis of the situation that we're in right now stems from the funding formula from like 20 or 30 years back, whenever that was. So just so our community is aware of that, Manitowoc district here has gotten the short end of the stick on that. And unfortunately, over time, that's resulted in the situation we're in now, where we have to take out these operating referendums just to pay the bills, so to speak, day to day. So it's an unfortunate situation, but best I could tell, and Jim, I've asked you about this a few times, it's really not that we're spending more than we should be, just that we're not getting enough to begin with relative to districts of our size and other areas of the state, which is really unfortunate, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that from our seats other than, point that out. But really, I'm just bringing that up just so our community knows that there is a deficit there that we have to figure out. And as a board, we need to really look at ultimately what's in the best serve our students and our community for years to come, and just be as transparent as we can with the public about that.
Gary?
Yeah, I thought you put that well. I mean, that's part of that's a large part of the problem. The other large part of the problem is that we're in an economic cycle right now where people are complaining about inflation, about government spending, about with some real justification, I guess. I mean, inflation is pretty bad, and yet the labor force is pretty much, we've got a low unemployment rate, but nevertheless, economics is, it's like Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. I mean, and we're not in an auspicious time economically to be asking for more. So I think that doesn't discourage me necessarily, but it does sort of raise the issue of, if we're going to do this, we need to do it with a really good campaign strategy. There've been referendums that have gone down here simply because there was no organized attempt to win over the electorate. And I think, boy, we skated through the last time, and I was really surprised that we did. But people like Lisa Johnson know all about trying to get referendum passed. And sometimes it's an uphill battle, and I think we're a bit on the tilt right now in the uphill direction. So I don't think we can take anything for granted. We need to run a good campaign.
Jim, did you want to speak to some of the marketing aspect as
Well,
far as the?
First of all, we can't use public money to promote.
Right, I know that.
We can only present factual information. And so that's what we will be doing, is we will be working to inform the public.
Right.
You know, in terms of what our needs are, what these resources will be used for, and how that could benefit the school district so that they can make a reasonable decision in terms of the casting of the vote. Now that, you know, what you have sometimes in the past, you have community members, you know, who have worked to, you know, support you, but that's not our public money, you know, that's doing that.
I'll comment. I'll say that, you said it eloquently as well, Carrie, but I think right now is not the time to ask for more money from our community. We are feeling the pinch like we kind of all thought we would, at least I thought so, that, we're gonna be going through an uphill battle here, and, I don't think our community, that's up to the community to decide, but I don't see supporting it right now because I don't see a path of it succeeding right now. The way this is presented. Well, thank you for your presentation. It's very hard to do what you're doing, and I commend you for how you present it. And it's very hard, so thank you. However, we need to present this information to our voters differently than and maybe I don't know something yet, but I would like to see some different approaches of how we're going to communicate with our community about a potential increase of $500 for the first year from a $275,000 value of their house. Not to mention all the other expenses that are being added in this community right now.
Yeah, we need to really emphasize that it's not picking their pocket. I mean, this isn't asking for people to shell out a whole lot of money each tax cycle. But it's actually absolutely vital for the interests of the community, the community's children, that we function at a kind of a break-even level. I mean, what Tony said is just absolutely so. And you can go and talk to your state representatives about how unfair the formula is, and that'll get you, that'll get you like a yacht. They're not going to change that, and this legislature is not particularly generous to education. So we need this money.
I would actually, as far as the where the legislature sits on that stuff, I don't want to comment on it too much, but I think that it's not that their approach is ungenerous, but I think that also if we you got to look at it as there's 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin. Each county's an advocate of themselves. So if that legislature is going to approach or try to seek increased funding, at the same time, they have to get all those 71 other counties on board. It's a very daunting task that I would never see them. I mean, because it's a pile of money that's only so big, and if that money is being taken away from their county, the other individuals, I don't see them getting on board with giving away money for their schools. So I think that's where the stance was. It's obviously a broken algorithm, to do the funding. But I just don't see that it's going to change anytime soon. That's just my mindset, and I don't think.
I mean, if they change it at their own peril,
it would have to be almost at a higher level even to have those changes. I don't think that it would be even on the legislature, but that's just me.
But that's what I say. I mean, we really need this. We really need to do this,
right? And unfortunately, we just can't really control that, right? So we have to focus on what we can control. And I think on that front, just being as transparent as we can on the impact this will have to taxpayers. And Angela, thank you for putting that chart together, breaking down the mill rate and everything, based on your home values. But I think if we could, show taxpayers that just so they're aware. I know that the dollar amount, when you look at it, you're probably going to initially have some sticker shock. But then when you look at, what does that actually equate to out of your pocket at the end of the day? It's not as much as you might think, right? So if I'm reading this right, if your home value is $150,000, that last tax year, 2028, you're looking at $1,275 extra in taxes, right? $1,275, right? To support our community, I think that's you know, the community will have to decide. You know, my opinion is that, you know, I think that we'll get the support. It's a lot of money, but, you know, what if we don't do it, right? That's, you know, that's gonna hurt us more in the long run. And I think we have to be wise with how we're using this money, and we have to make sure that it's going in the right areas. And that's why everything else that we're doing right now is so important. So we have to make the right decisions. But, you know, the reality is when you operate a district of this size, you know, if you want to continue to operate and attract talent, you have to pay them wages that are competitive with the market. And we're dealing with an environment now that not everyone can control, right? You know, it is what it is, right? But the reality is that, you know, sadly, you know, Madison's not going to come to save us, right? But we have to figure this out here in Manitowoc, and we, you know, I'll leave it at that. But it's, you know, I think that from everything I'm hearing, all the experts, Angela, Jim, you know, everyone I've talked to in the district feels that like this is really necessary. If we're going to accomplish what we want to accomplish as a district, like we have to get this figured out.
That's correct. And even through the end of the referendum we're speaking of, we're still going to be, Andy confirmed that this graph is correct, but we're still going to be lower than we were in 2015, 2016. You know what I mean?
Exactly what I
We
was
were
gonna
paying
say.
more
Correct,
then
yes.
than we would even, because we were able to bring it down. Like right now, our mill rate is incredibly low. Actually, we've saved taxpayer money this year.
Correct. I mean, it's, you look at the revenue limit where you have the state aid and the levy balance, what happened is they didn't give us additional revenue and increased aid, so that lowered your levy expensively. But then they, you know, then with the revenues falling off, it essentially becomes like a shell game, unfortunately. I hate to even reference that, it as that, but, you know, the mill rate is very personal to a taxpayer, and I definitely, I pay taxes in Manitowoc Public School District. My kids go to school here. I will make a recommendation like this slightly, but I stand behind it 100%, 110%, even more than that. But I think of it as an investment rate. You know, we're investing in our education, our strategic plan, our students, our future, all of those things, you know, so it's, you know, it's all how you look at it, you know. I think of it as an investment rate in our schools. And we don't, I don't understand how counties are funded or the city is funded. But for example, when talking to my financial colleagues in the city and in the county, they're able to provide like a 5% increase to their staff, you know. So it's kind of like in other, you know, we compare ourselves to other districts, but even just in, you know, on the municipal or the, you know, public employee front, you know, we should be able to provide the same to our employees.
But I would like to just state what those, you know, I think that's a very good point as far as those mill rates go, as to what those are. So the mill rate, just for, you know, point of clarification, in 2020 and 2021 was $7.81. That's $1,000 per, that's per $1,000 value, all right, on your home. Then this year, the current year, it decreased to $5.51 per 1,000 on the mill rate. The budget year that is, this is the current model scenario is $7.20 for the 2023-2024. In comparison to the $7.42 of 2021 and 2022. So it is, as stated, less than. And then also for 2024, 2025, it still will be less than what was in 2021 and 2022, with a value associated of $7.37.
That's
So
the stuff we have to emphasize.
it is important to emphasize, as you know, so that people do understand that, you know, we're being very diligent in what we're asking. It isn't.
Yeah, we should stay away from the lump sum and talk about how it's going to affect the pockets.
Correct.
And if there's a recession, then pray a lot.
Is there anything else that anybody wanted to ask or discuss?
I just want to say that there'll probably be like, if we're lucky, 200 people that watch the video feed on this. And that's whatever. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it's
the climate that we're living in right now is I understand the need, I do, but the climate that April is gonna bring is it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to address at the moment. And people are stressed out enough already, and we're gonna add another stressor. So that's what I'm more concerned about, of how we present the information to our voters.
But the irony is that we've got billions in surplus. You know, so we might want to try to persuade some of the decision makers that some of that should go to education.
Is there any, as far as the language or,
Is that right up there?
yes, has that been looked at by CISA, the CC7 lady currently? Has that been?
Oh, the wording for the ballot
Yeah.
was all included because we had to have that prepared and
Yeah, it's gotta be
posted
really-
with the agenda. So that's all included in both Jim and I and Lisa and then maybe someone else, maybe it was the three of us to finalize that.
Yeah.
And we studied past referendum wording. And then also Quarles and Brady who advised us.
Very
on this.
legalistic, you know, in terms of
Yeah.
really some of that reference, you know, that's different than your information packets that we will be sending out, and that information that we work, you know, to inform the public.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion on the matter? So that being said, I would seek a motion to approve the proposed referendum for the do you want me to read this resolution?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think you should read the titles of the resolutions and then take a separate vote on each of them, please.
So we can do for the spring 2023 referendum, resolution authorizing the school district budget to exceed revenue limit for 5 years for non-reoccurring purposes. Motion to approve.
Return this one.
The first, it's attachment C, or it's agenda item C.1. All right.
We've got to vote on it.
So this is for the referendum.
I had it.
And you can have it here, right, they're both-
And then the next C.2 would be for the question for resolution
from the ballot.
on the ballot, correct?
Oh, yeah.
I'll ask again.
I'll make the motion. I already made them.
Oh, you did? Oh, I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear him say.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion to the motion? All right. Seeing as how there is no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Hey,
The ayes have it. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is C.2, resolution providing for a referendum election on the question of the approval of the authorizing the school district budget to exceed revenue limit for 5 years for non-recurring purposes. Is there any discussion or a motion?
is that that?
This, Angela, it's basically just the discussion, right?
Yes, it's just, these are the resolutions provided by, that would legally required to have approved by the Board of Education. It just says that the term is 5 years for this one.
Can I get a motion? I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion. Second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Yeah.
Ayes have it. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the WASB State Education Convention. Kathy, did you want to speak to that?
Yep. Okay, this next week, I believe Terry Trask and Jim are headed to the city conference in Milwaukee. And I am the delegate which votes on behalf of the school board. And so there are quite a number of resolutions that WASB is asking us to vote on. In the past, I have read each of the amendments and we've voted on them. I'm debating about how to go about this because it worked really well last year, but we're already in a really long meeting. But I want transparency at the same time too. So I guess part of the thing to explain though is these resolutions are WASB they're a lobbying group essentially, and so they go and start lobbying on the behalf of all the boards about what we want to have them lobby about essentially. So so these are changes. Most of them are amendments to existing resolutions, and so there are some word changes. I think I'll just read the headlines, and if anyone wants further discussion, we'll do that. I also want to say for the public that they can go on the WASB site and look up the 2023 resolutions so that you can know how the board feels and what's up for voting.
I would just like to say that since Kathy's done this before and done it with the consent and approval of the board, that I certainly would recommend that the board trust her judgment on this and do her job again as well as she has in the past.
Thanks.
So
I would also
that was a motion?
Well, it wasn't exactly.
Okay, statement, good.
I would like to just say that I totally believe that Kathy's, I trust her judgment. I just like to put input on one of them. That's it.
Okay.
And if that's okay, I'd do it now. Or
input is welcome. Absolutely. Why not?
There,
or should we read through them first? I feel like we should at least read through this.
Sure, go ahead.
They are, so
that's fine.
People know. So the first one is the high cost of transportation aid, and basically the only amendment there would be that WASB wants to further support the state high cost of transportation. So it's about lobbying for more money, basically for those districts that are sparsely populated and have further to go, further distances to go. So that's the first one. Any questions on that one?
Nope.
Okay, the second is voter education. Essentially, that amendment is so that they would like to lobby for students to be taught like what responsible voting is, so that students are aware of how important it is to vote. The next one was charter school funding. I'm trying to remember all these off the top of my head what they were, but it was basically about how, as a district, we have to pay out of our pockets for charter schools. I think I need to read this one. I don't remember what it is. It's short. The funding for charter schools not authorized by the local school board. It's directly from the state and not from aid deductions to the resident school district or a first draw on school equalization aids. So these are the kinds of things that we're voting on. So. Right. Yeah. So basically, it takes money away from the district as it exists now, so it would help us. So interrupt me if we need to go through anything else. Learning barriers for students with disabilities. This is pretty short too. The WASB supports legislation which gives school districts IEP team appeal recourse in cases where the parent refuses to accept a program for the handicapped child when recommended by the IEP team under Chapter 115. And this, so people understand, this rationale is, it's really to help our students so that they get that increased support from within our schools and parents that they so desperately need, especially when they're dealing with IEPs. So that would be something I would hands down vote for unless someone thinks differently. No? Okay. Next, I'm trying to just bomb through these. The next is resolution 23.05, which is discipline of students with disabilities. It's on our IEPs, special ed. The existing resolution is 3.4.5, discipline of students with disabilities as follows. The WASB supports ensuring the right to a free and appropriate public education for a student with a disability is not infringed by discriminatory disciplinary, well, I'm not saying that very well, discriminatory disciplinary policies. And to me, that's also a given, right? That we're not going to discriminate against our students with IEPs in special education. Let's see here. Any issues yet? It feels almost like saying this, but people need to hear it.
I'll stop it.
Okay, this next one.
No, I'm 10, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm 10. Okay. The next is career and technical education. It is an existing amendment or an existing resolution. There's an amendment to include, they're calling it and technical training, that we just don't call it career training. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's just added verbiage in there. So that's also the technical side of things. Number 8 is services for students with disabilities at voucher schools. So it's a repeal, which is existing resolution 3.93, students with disabilities parental choice, which currently reads, the WASB support legislation requiring private schools participating in any parental choice program to accept and provide services to students with disabilities with additional state funding for the education of these students. I'll explain further. The rationale is that it is arguably outdated because of the evolution of the voucher landscape in Wisconsin over the last decade. So the current language was adopted prior to the creation of the Special Needs Scholarship Fund. There was no state program to provide state funding to private schools in return for them providing special education services to pupils with disabilities until the 2016-17 school year when the SNSP took effect. Well, like that. Okay. Number 9 is addressing barriers to learning for students with disabilities. The WASB supports state and local investment in preserving or pre-service learning, training, and ongoing professional development for all educators to meet the needs of students with disabilities across all general education settings, including investment in the implementation of best practices in meeting the needs of diverse learners. Any issues? Okay, resolution 2310. It's FORT, F-O-R-T requirement for education, for educators. They want to, this is the creation. The WASB supports legislation to provide all teaching license applicants with an alternative pathway to licensure that does not require passage of the Foundations of Reading test.
Okay, now, this is my question, and does this not sound crazy? I looked up exactly what the FORT test is in Wisconsin. It's just a computer-based test that assesses proficiency and understanding of reading and writing content knowledge, literacy development, and instruction. We want to take that away? That sounds like lowering the score and making it a 74 and 8. I can't see that we would even, what is WASB thinking?
Well, here, let me read the rest.
Well, I know the rationale, and I'd like to address the rationale.
Well, let me read it first.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So the rationale is many districts throughout Wisconsin are facing challenges with the recruitment and retention of teachers. To be licensed in Wisconsin, the applicants for an initial licensure as an elementary teacher, a special education teacher, a reading teacher, or a reading specialist are required to pass the Foundations of Reading test. Recently, state licensing statutes were amended to provide for an alternative demonstration of knowledge and skill in the teaching of reading for special education teacher candidates only. Passing the FORT can be a costly and time-consuming process with a relatively high failure rate, especially among teacher license applicants of color and applicants whose first language is not like English. That's the rationale.
Okay. Yeah, I still don't. I don't care about the rationale. To me, we're talking about reading specialists not having to pass a reading test. That's the one I couldn't say that I would vote against that. That's just my own opinion. Am I alone on that?
No, I support it 100%.
100%.
Okay, all right. then that's it. That's the only thing I would say. Other than that, everything
I
else,
mean, we're down and out.
actually, yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, the next is on unemployment compensation. The WASB supports that school personnel who resign from their position with the school district or CISA following the completion of their signed contract and have reasonable assurance of continued employment for the next contract year or school year, and subsequently accept a contract for the following academic year with another district or CISA, are not eligible for unemployment compensation since there is no gap in employment or expected loss of income.
Yeah, I think that's right. So don't get an unemployment for the summer. You know.
Okay, next, societal issues. Existing resolution 6.10 as follows, adding the underlying language and deleting the stricken language. So I'll say what that is in a moment. The WASB supports increasing the efforts of all levels of government, private organizations, businesses, and families in providing prevention, early intervention, or other programs to problems. It said solve before, to
It's sort of
problems.
address problems, yeah.
Yeah, to address problems. It said to solve problems
right.
before, such as gangs, violence, bullying, and they want to add and harassment, including hunger, unemployment. They're also adding and any and all forms of discrimination, racism, and injustice that are being manifested in our communities, which would help enable schools to focus on academic, not extracurricular endeavors. Would you like me to read the rationale?
Anyone else think it's weird that they crossed off solve?
Well, because they know we can't necessarily solve them, we are trying to address them. I think that's the issue is,
I think
that
address is the
particular
proper
word.
way to say it,
yeah,
especially when it comes to like gangs of violence and bullying.
yeah, we're not. It'd
We're
be
trying
great
to
if we
address it.
could.
We're trying to solve it. I think that's our goal, but I mean, in the end, it's hard.
I don't know. I think that's a mild modification, I think, but you know, it's a good statement. It's just,
Okay.
it's a resolution.
Okay, okay. So then to 13, sorry, I'm trying to make this as short as possible. Weapon possessions, the existing resolution 6.1 A and B as follows. Anyway, it's the WASB supports legislation that is intended to ensure the safety of attending school and school-sponsored activities. The WASB supports legislation limiting or prohibiting the possession by children of all firearms. Before it said purchase, so now it says possession by children of all firearms, knives, spring guns, I don't know what it is, air guns, and other weapons on school grounds. They added that part too. The WASB supports legislation requiring school officials to be notified of the disposition of legal cases involving juveniles found guilty of weapons violations, assaults, and other crimes which resulted or could have resulted in injury to others. There's another part to this, but essentially it goes on about the same type of thing. It's about the safety of our kids. So does anyone have issues with the weapon possession?
It seems like we're really,
I know.
is it necessary?
It
We already
seems like a
don't allow
given.
it, but yeah, go ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
legislate the heck out of it.
The next is oppose federal agency mandates imposed without use of rulemaking process. The WASB opposes attempts by federal agencies to impose policy mandates or edicts on local school districts and or to withhold or threaten to withhold any school program funding through the issuance of guidance documents that are really enforcement documents in disguise. The WASB supports that federal agencies use the formal federal rulemaking process, which provides for public notice and comment on proposed rules or regulations to make policy changes, particularly when controversial topics of subject areas are involved. Any discussion?
That's good.
The next is universal free school meals. The WASB supports state supplemental funding sufficient to establish a universal free school meal program, enabling all students, regardless of family income, to receive free school meals at all schools, regardless of participation in the federal school meals program.
Is that necessary? I mean, it isn't necessary. I mean, no.
Yeah, I
I
think
can pay
anything
for
that
my
the state
kids.
can do to take money, to help from taking money out of pockets, I don't think it's bad.
Well,
I really
and
don't
I see it
We don't
as,
get enough money
no
for
matter
schools.
how much money you make, doesn't mean your kids are necessarily being sent to school with the right, vitamins and
I agree.
nutrition.
now
So
we're gonna
this
trust
way
the
we can
government to
provide
do
it
that?
for everyone.
Well, at least help fund it. Yeah. And take anything more that you can. They're not already not giving us enough per student, in my opinion. At least pay for their lunches. So I got it all done.
What is the
Okay.
rationale? Proper nutrition? I don't know.
I mean, doing more.
It's a problem, yeah, but I don't think it's gonna be solved with free school.
Now that they're funding it, yeah, I guess.
I just don't wanna pay for the doctor's kids to eat.
Keep in mind that this is
It's for lobbying.
it is a lobbying organization, so just keep that in mind. These are not.
Yes,
So
these
are not-
We're not making a rule.
these are not
They're
ours.
just saying that we
It is
support
what
them to
theirs.
go lobby for that.
Yes.
They're gonna make the argument, if you don't pay for all of them, the kids that are subsidized are gonna feel bad.
That's
Which
true.
may be true,
You
which
can
may
try
be true, but, I'd like to see those kids fed.
I treat everybody.
All right, let's
Yeah.
keep going.
Okay.
Come on back.
Next is learning loss. WASB supports efforts to provide federal and state funds that will be targeted to fund local districts' efforts to address learning loss caused by disaster or emergency that affects large portions of the state. The example of as COVID-19. Any learning loss. Okay, licensure. This is a really weird one to read. It says, note, existing resolutions relating to certification or licensure are found in the resolutions book, because I think it's like so lengthy that they didn't even write it out.
Well, skip it.
I say no. That right there is
It's super, super long.
it's super long and they're sticking a lot of bunches, instead of
There's a lot.
separating it out, they're hiding little tiny little things in there. Honestly, I would go no on that.
I'll pull them out and make sure
Okay.
I'm well versed.
Because
And
part of
then,
that is what I addressed earlier about, being able to, have alternative pathways that they're like trying to attack it from two different ways. Honestly, that's garbage.
yeah, it's hard. Last one is classroom technology, and that one too is super lengthy. So it's
It's not gonna make it.
oh no, Carrie's not gonna leave it. It's about technology and virtual schools, visas, and all those kinds of things. So
Yeah, you'll do the right thing, Kathy.
yeah, and I'll go up on those technology.
All right.
Okay, with that, is there any discussion, anything you want me to know, hear about? Okay. I'll be there in a minute.
People will still argue over questions.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we hear, like, it's like run like a meeting too, so people will voice their opinions during the whole process too, so you
Yeah,
can know what it's
I don't-
like. It's
I don't
like
envy you,
going to a
so.
board meeting. It's so like, they bring each one up and they have to have motions and you have to vote and we have discussions, so it's interesting.
That's gotta be a long meeting.
It is a lot.
Longer than ours?
Oh, none are longer
Yes.
than ours.
All right. Stacy's not, was there anything else, that as far as the WASB resolutions, if anybody had anything, further, Carrie and Kathy are both going to be going, so we can definitely approach them if there's further discussion on that. There's no remarks, from the board president that I had. Did Stacy leave any with you at all? No? Okay. Then moving on to the next item on the agenda is the future meeting dates. We obviously have the upcoming special board meeting. Is that still standing okay with everybody?
What's the date on that again?
Let me pull up my calendar
Yeah,
of meetings here.
It's the Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
It's the Wednesday, the 25th.
And that is at 6 p.m. We have, in the meantime, until that meeting, we have a curriculum meeting. And when is that?
17th, Kathy, is that correct? 17th at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So I have my calendar.
17th at 5 p.m.
That's next.
What I have
That's
right-
next Tuesday.
Buildings and grounds, do you have anything are you guys meeting anytime soon?
No.
Okay.
So I did send out a revised invite.
Oh, you did?
Mhm.
You said that.
Last week.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It's
Well,
it's the first
sorry.
Wednesday of each month
It
at
is.
4:30.
Yeah. We didn't have any business this time.
Nope.
So, yeah, no, I get
Starting in
that, yeah.
February.
Yeah, in February.
Okay.
Ad hoc committee, the behavior committee is meeting January 23rd at 4:15 here at the district office.
Awesome. And then finance, is meeting, the 18th at 5:30, correct? Still
That's the
on?
meeting that's on the calendar, but it's the state convention,
Yeah,
so I'm wondering.
We need to change that
if we
then?
reach out to the committee, if you can find a rescheduled date. I think
Okay.
that'd be best since I plan to attend as well.
Okay.
So I'll be in touch with it. I mean, we could just look at the next week is our board meeting at 6. You could either go before then or another day. So I'll reach out.
And we'll reschedule. Okay, great. And then, should be
No, they just had a
First-
meeting yesterday.
personnel just had one yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That being said, there's nothing further on the agenda. We do have a closed session that has been put on the agenda, and that is considering the employment promotion compensation. Yeah, I'll read the whole thing. Thank you. The Board of Education will vote to convene in closed session for the purpose of considering the following matter: considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This meeting is authorized pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent C of the Wisconsin statutes. So seeking a motion to go into closed session.
Maybe before, I'm gonna raise an objection. If there is a motion, I'll vote no on the motion because, item B, update restructuring of specific central office personnel is not permitted. It's not an exemption under the open meeting law. The open meeting law only allows for, and I've got the law here.
Sure.
But it only allows for really personnel actions, for the most part, affecting us, personnel actions that involve individuals. You can't talk about the structure of the whole administrative branch in a closed meeting. That
I think
has to
that's
be done
personnel
publicly.
actions though, isn't it?
It's not a personnel action.
Okay,
It's an administrative action.
I guess it's an opinion.
I, contacted the attorney in terms of, the legitimacy of doing this. Because, the restructuring impacts individuals, that discussion can be had in closed session.
And Mike,
Well, then it should be worded differently.
would you agree that that would be the discussion surrounding the restructuring of specific central office personnel, that would in fact be specific individuals as discussed?
Yes, I believe so.
Right.
I believe so that you can have that closed session under those circumstances.
Right. And then that being said, we would be seeking a motion to move into closed session for the following matters.
Take a motion to go into closed session and a roll call vote.
All right. We have a second.
Second.
Which one? Who's second? Okay. All right. Then we will need a roll call vote to move into closed session.
Colin, no.
Aye.
Matthew Phipps.
Aye.
Matthew Spalding. Carrie Trask.
Nay.
Tony Voselica.
Aye.
Kathy Willis.
Aye.
All right. We're in closed session.
Okay.
like, 5, 6 for 5 minutes?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, we'll give a 10-minute recess for,
Yeah.
Yep.
so that-
We're starting. The one time I brought.
well.
Gone.
What do we want to start? What do you want to talk